So today's guest is the co-founder of Staehle Media, and he helps solopreneurs and brands generate more leads using video and audio content. It is my pleasure to have on today's episode, Mr. Evan Staehle. Evan, thank you so much for being today's guest, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I know you're gonna have a lot of great stuff for the listeners. As always, I mean, every interview brings more and more to the table. So I know this is going to be just as great. So let's start off. I mean, what do you do and why do you do it?
Yeah. So I help solopreneurs and brands build their businesses and grow awareness and generate leads with video and audio content. That's primarily what I do. So I like to come alongside of business owners and help them figure out the content side of things, specifically when it comes to video and podcast marketing, which I think is a pretty, or at least with podcasting, it's a pretty underutilized format. I think a lot of businesses don't quite see the full potential of. I think video is at the point where it's pretty widely accepted across the board for most businesses. I think most people understand, oh, I got to have video. And that's something we definitely help with. But I think podcasting is also in that space where some people are like, I don't really need that. But like personally, obviously, I'm biased. So I feel like there's a huge potential for marketing for adopting that. And so that's what we do. We primarily do original video series for solopreneurs and brands. And we also do marketing videos and podcast production. That's the three things that I primarily do.
Sweet. And what got you into? I mean, because that's a cool field, and that definitely is necessary. I definitely want to tap on that potential necessity to have like podcasting kind of under your media portfolio. But I mean, what dove you into this field? I know we've talked about it kind of on LinkedIn, but I mean, what dove you into creating this kind of media company, successful media company?
Yeah. So I'll give you the origin story. This actually I have to go even farther back to really kind of set the tone here. So I guess it really starts back. This would be 2012, I think. I had a pretty good like 9-to-5 style office job. It was like my first, like official job out of college, right?
Yep.
I did that for a while, like a year. And so then I lost my job, and then was like, crap, what the heck am I gonna do? I had actually minored in graphic design in college, so I had something of a graphic design background. So I was like, well, what the heck? I'm just going to freelance and try that out. So I did that just to like make money because I need something to come in. So I started out as Evan Staehle Designs was like the official first iteration. I had a couple of like jobs here and there, and I had to end up getting part-time stuff just to kind of get money going. So I worked at like a part-time jobs in the area. And then I didn't really do too much of the graphic design for a while, but then I kind of had more of an idea, like, what if it wasn't just graphic design? What if it was like other stuff? Because technically I went to school and intended to go into video production. That was kind of like my intention. So I was like, well, maybe I can get into doing some more of that. So I kind of rebranded it as Staehle Creative is what it was. And it was kind of like trying to combine a couple of different my talents together, like video and like new graphic design, all this other kind of stuff. And so I kind of had this little rebranding project in, and that kind of flopped. Didn't really go anywhere. So I was kind of, oh, okay, whatever. So I put that on the shelf. And then it was always just kind of in the back of my mind, and especially my wife's mind too. We were like, would it be really cool to like run a business together and like do that? Because we like couples like like Chip and Joanna Gaines and like from their show and saw them in action, and was like, man, that'd be really cool if we could have this kind of like husband wife dynamic duo thing and run a business and stuff. And that's just like what we do. So it was kind of always there. And then it was really until 2018, it would have been like the end of the year, late fall, where we were like, we took it a little bit more seriously. And it's like, okay, what if we actually like did this and like started a business? So we kind of mapped it out and tried to figure out what it would take, how we could do that. So we started it out as Staehle Visual Media, because we were thinking, let's combine our talents, because my wife has a photography background. So we were thinking, oh, video and photography, that'd be cool. Yeah. And then that lasted for like a week. And then we're like, hold on, what if we just did like more than just visual media? Like, why limit ourselves to just that? So we're like, okay. So we dropped the name and then rebranded it as Staehle Media, so we could offer more stuff. And if like, the market ever changed and there was a more emphasis on like non-visual media, we could be flexible and do that. So that's kind of where it all started. We knew it was going to be a side hustle for probably a while. I wasn't really sure how long, but we kind of had that mindset of this is going to be a side thing for a while, and maybe someday we will turn it into a full-time thing. And that was the goal, was to turn it into a full-time thing. We just didn't really know when. That's how it kind of started, and we got into that.
That's awesome, man. I think that's, and there's so much in there. We've definitely got to talk about it. There's so much in there. That's awesome. I mean, let's talk about like probably like the most important aspect that makes so much sense compared to like, well, you know, considering who's like usually listening are people that are in side hustles, but they're ready to take that leap. So, I mean, can we tap on that a little bit? I mean, what did it take for you to say, okay, my 9 to 5 isn't it anymore. It's time to go full time with the business. I mean, what factors did you have to consider? I mean, what was involved in that?
Yeah. Some people would say that like, and I don't agree with this, but I know there's a view out there that like, if you really are serious about running a business, you need to like drop your 9 to 5, like cold turkey, and just start from scratch. And because you'll be forced to like build it up from nothing because you got to pay the bills. And I'm like, I don't really agree with that. So I always had my own personal philosophy, even from when we started, was like, it being like a side thing while having a 9 to 5. That way we could kind of do this on the side and scale it up. We wouldn't have to worry about like, we need this to work so we can have money kind of thing. It was just, the freedom to kind of scale it as needed and kind of take our own pace with it. So that helped, having that mindset, because it was like anything we did in the company on the side was like, it wasn't like a huge deal. So like if we lost money or like didn't land this gig, or if we got even just a little bit, it was okay because we didn't need it. So it was just like experimental, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally.
So I think having that mindset really helped. And I would encourage any like listeners too to like, I'm sorry, can you hearing like dings on your end? I have like notifications pop up and I'm realizing, can you hear that? Okay, just me. Okay, good. Yeah, so I would encourage anybody listening to consider that mindset. So there might be some of that narrative out there that you might feel pressured to like, I gotta like just quit my job and just jump into entrepreneurship. And how about, I mean, it's different for everybody. Maybe there are some personalities that they can really like handle that well, but for me, and I know a lot of other people out there, it's probably better to have a plan and an exit plan too. So for us, that looked like mapping out a clear, like we need this amount monthly consistently to know that we can switch. So having like a flat number really helped, because that was like a target we could aim for in terms of the cash flow. And I also kind of was in the process of figuring out an exit plan too, because I knew that I didn't want to just like jump ship and to be like deuces to like my boss and stuff at the time, because I figured that I didn't want to burn any bridges. So I wanted to make sure like a way that I could leave and it'd be like, it'd be okay and still maintain the I guess respect and relationships there if possible. So I kind of came up with an exit plan of what the conversation would look like and when would be a good time and how that would work and that kind of thing. So yeah, those are two main things. The actual decision of pulling the trigger came sooner than I think I was expecting, which it's not a bad thing. It was just kind of came sooner. This happened last year, kind of toward the end of last year. Things were just getting like crazy. Not necessarily with the business and work. It was just like life responsibilities. I have 3 kids, so juggling 3 kids. And this is during the pandemic. So my eldest son was in like the virtual academy for school, and it was like helping him with that. And it was just like crazy. So there was one day, might have been like that, maybe September or something, where I was like sitting at my desk and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like something has to change. And with like the whole setup and stuff. So then like out of nowhere, this thought hits me of like, what if you just jump into your business and instead of being an employee, you become a contractor for your current boss? And I was like, wow, I never really thought about that before. I think that could work. So I spent like a good week of just kind of like crunching numbers and figuring out this game plan of like, could I do this and it'd be like good for everybody? So I pitched the idea to my boss and he was like, yeah, cool.
Okay then.
Yeah, so it's kind of worked out from there.
That's awesome, man. I mean, and that's out of the box thinking, man. Because I remember asking and kind of getting people's opinions on that too. If I have a side hustle, it was a poll I put out. If you have a side hustle, would you tell your boss? And there's mixed thought processes on that. But I never even thought of that factor of, okay, well, what if I quit my day job, but kind of work for my day job at the same time? It's like, it's interesting. So I think that's really creative, really smart thinking too, to do something like that. It's genius.
Yeah, it may not work in every scenario with every job, but yeah, that's something to consider if you're listening and you're trying to find a way out of your 9 to 5. Is maybe a setup like that where you can work out instead of being a W-2 employee, maybe you can be a contractor or something, some setup like that that'll help you provide some extra income, and you won't have to like find a whole new set of clients and stuff like that just to go full time.
Yeah. And then you've got a really smart, like, well, you've got a really good base to build off from. And then you also, like you mentioned that point too, which was really good, that instead of just immediately jumping ship. Now I know exactly what you mean, that there's some people that might be their driving force is, okay, I operate better if it's sink or swim, if it's
Yeah.
salmon. That's cool. And those are the guys that you might read about in the books. But I think I'm with you on that one too, is that, I mean, you might be working at a 9 to 5 that you're not too super excited about, and you've got your side hustle that you're working really hard on, but you've got kind of like an edge, like you mentioned, that if something happens with your side hustle, if something happens with that business, like money wise, it's not the end of the world, because you still have other sources of, I mean, hate it or love it, you've got consistent income coming in from that 9 to 5 job. So you've got something to leverage. Yeah, that's really smart. And I think everyone just has to play it by, I mean, like you said, it's circumstantial, but also playing it by your strengths, by your weaknesses. If you work better, just kind of quitting and going for it, more power to you. If you feel like you want to get your side hustle up to that point where it's like you guys did, where it's sustainable, nice, pretty solid income each month, then you quit. That's a great option too. So I like that, man. Really like that. So, I mean, let me ask you this. So you kind of are living you're living the side hustler's dream. You turn your side hustle into your main hustle. So what's been like the fun stuff? Let's talk about the fun stuff. What's what's favorite stuff or things about running your own business?
Yeah. I think I probably would have to say the freedom. I mean, obviously, that's probably why most people they do their own business. So it's nice having my own schedule that I can own. And I can decide what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, and that kind of thing. So that's probably one of the biggest things for me. I also like the fact that, if it's your business, you have like full ownership of it, so you can kind of make it into whatever you want it to be.
Right.
It's like your baby, basically, in a sense.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like I enjoy having that, and having the fact that there's no limits. So like, if you want to scale into like a, I don't know, $2 million business, like you can if you want to. You don't have to, but if you want to, you can.
So, yeah.
So that's always for me. It's nice having something that I can kind of grow as however I define that, and yeah, I have ownership of it. I can make it what I want it to be, and if I want to make it bigger, I can. There's no limits, no ceiling really.
Right. Yeah, the limits are just within your mind. I've been learning that too, and helping some clients to kind of understand that too, that it's yours. I think there might be some kind of like challenge there. I don't want to put a word to it, but there might be some challenge for someone that's maybe been in that kind of like employee mindset for so long, and then now they've kind of dived into like this entrepreneur realm where it's a complete different mindset shift.
Yeah.
It's totally different in the way that you manage your business. It'll be completely different than what you're used to your entire life, and what most other people are used to too. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty big deal. But the freedom, I know the freedom that's a huge thing. Full autonomy, so you can control any aspect, you grow that or shrink as you please. That's pretty cool. But then on the flip side, you've got to be realistic too, because I mean, shoot, those challenges are there in running your business.
Yeah.
Like what challenges have you discovered or experienced? I mean, how did you overcome them?
Yeah. Some of them might be still in process of that, but I think initially, The biggest thing was just juggling responsibilities. Which, like I said, I have 3 kids, so there's a lot of stuff going on in my house, like chaos on a regular basis. So I mean, in one sense, it's good that I have, if you're running your own business in a situation like that, it's flexible, so it's not quite as demanding, I guess, or like hard as if we were at home with a 9 to 5 or whatever. But yeah, so that's always proven to be a challenge, and I guess I didn't really expect it to be when we first went full time back in January. So I had my first week of like full-time entrepreneurship like planned out. So like I had my calendar all pulled up and I like blocked out time out what I was going to do, what I was going to accomplish. So it was like, I'm legit now. So I was trying to like
Yep.
get like a rhythms and schedules and stuff. And then some like got blown out of the water just because of life and stuff. And I guess I initially didn't expect that to happen. I'll be honest and say I think I envisioned the transition to be sexier somehow. Maybe that's because I had entrepreneurship too idealized in my mind. Maybe I don't know. So I kind of envisioned that like switching would be like this a huge burden was like lifted from my shoulders, and life would be so much better and maybe even a little easier. And none of that really happened. It's still hard. Things are still hard. It's just maybe like a different kind of hard. I don't know if it's necessarily the same type of hard, but there's newer challenges and different hardships. And that doesn't say like I hate it or anything like that. It's just I guess I may have had it too built up in my mind when I should have been a bit more realistic about things. Yeah, and I think the last thing that was kind of, all of this is more like mindset stuff for me. I think that's been the biggest challenge, which is like mindset stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, when it was just a side hustle for us, it was like fun because it was like on the side, we didn't need the money, so it was a lot of like fun. So I enjoyed it. It was fun. And then, but like now that it's full time, it's like a job, So now it's like I'm not doing this because I want to, it's fun. I mean, I do want to, but like it's more of this obligation sense to it. Like I have to, so we can pay the bills kind of thing. So that's not like bad or anything. It's just a mindset thing where sometimes like that happens. I think it comes and goes. I mean, obviously you want to love what you do and be passionate and good at what you're doing. But sometimes it isn't always fun, and sometimes it's kind of, it's a business, so there's like back end stuff got to worry about, and it isn't always exciting or sexy.
Yeah, and that's why I like to throw this part. That's why I kind of made the whole podcast passion, pain, and personal finance, because like I think you made like a really great point, and it's something that a lot of people that are aspiring to kind of be an entrepreneur have to be aware of too. A lot of it is like so heavily glamorized nowadays. Quit your job, stop working 9 to 5 and do this. And like, I mean, like you said, I mean, there's still a lot of stuff to enjoy about owning your own business. I mean, there is that freedom. There is that kind of more control over your life and kind of the roads that you go. But what's not really talked about too much are the challenge points, are the pain points of being an entrepreneur. And I think maybe society's viewpoint has been more on the optimistic side when it comes to entrepreneurship. But like you said, I mean, it's even more than just the business. Sometimes it's just a mindset that needs to get changed up too, or not changed up, but adjusted.
Yeah.
To what's going on. And I think anyone that's kind of been an entrepreneur for some time, and it doesn't have to be some time, like it doesn't have to be for years and years. I mean, you can have your own business started like within a couple of months. You'll go through, it's kind of like the trial by fire emotionally.
Yeah.
Emotionally. I've talked about it here and there about like what was like one of the biggest like motivating factors for why I like am a business consultant for side hustles and things like that. Because when I had mine, there would be some moments, man, where emotionally I was a wreck and I had no idea what to do. The business is stuck. I'm stuck. Dang. But then like hiring a coach is what helped me out. So that's why I kind of do that. But it's because of going through those like emotional pitfalls that kind of spurs you to do something different. But I'm glad and I'm thankful that you were able to be kind of like that transparent about what's going on and what's realistic. you know,
Yeah,
about,
yeah. I think it's definitely over glamorized in culture, say entrepreneurship. So um, big thing I would say to anybody listening is just to have a good, healthy, realistic mindset about entrepreneurship. Because a lot of what you see, like if you're new to it, a lot of stuff that you see on like social media, people sharing is all like the highlights, the success stories, and you see that like, oh, that's cool, I want to do that, you know. But you know, nobody really. Some people do, and that's great, but not everybody puts out like the really hard days or the challenges, or it's like we lost like all this money. Now we're rethinking our whole business and you all like all those kind of stories, which happen. But you don't really see that too often on social media. So a lot of what we see is just the glamorized like success stories, and people don't tell you the other
the,
side of the stories.
you know, the nitty gritty. That's something that definitely, and I know we do. So like if people follow, especially you on LinkedIn, like you keep it real with people, and like what's the good days and the bad days. I know you do like a really great job with that too, but there really has to be like a wider awareness of that, you know, because it is fun, it's enjoyable, but there's challenges just like anything else. It's a different set of challenges, like you said. So that's something to be aware of. Now, I was going to ask, you know, usually one of the best questions is, you know, what advice would you give someone that's up and coming? But you kind of tapped on it, unless you had something else that was a little bit different.
Yeah, I've got some like tips for it's more like financial related tips. I don't know if that would be
Please.
helpful for your offense. Okay. So a couple of things if you're getting like a side hustle off the ground and you're looking to grow it and stuff, is get a accounting software as soon as you can. It doesn't have to be like QuickBooks level, that kind of thing, but just find something in some way of keeping track of your money, even if it's just like you know a couple $100s a month kind of thing, like that small, like still like find a way to manage all that. Some people like spreadsheets. I guess it's okay if you're like small and you're starting out, but at least look into like full-on software that allow you to categorize expenses and like you know monitor all of that stuff. It's important to like early on, at least for me it was, to be able to really get a good flow on financials and understanding where money's going when it's coming in, and it's not really the size or the amount of money that matters in that case. It's more just the practice of doing it. Because for some it's like for some people it might be like a whole new habit of tracking money that diligently. So it's good to start early. And there's like free options out there. So I know people automatically think like QuickBooks, like, oh, I don't have the money to buy something like that. But there's free stuff out there too. If you do enough searching, you can find something that works for you. It's kind of along that same line too, is reviewing the financials, which is actually something I'm trying to do on a more regular basis recently. So like even just weekly for me is just to review profit and loss statements, look at invoices that aren't getting paid yet and all that kind of stuff. I know it's like, again, this is the unsexy side of like business, but it matters. It matters that you're regularly checking on this stuff and just being aware of like how your business is doing, where you're at, why there's 3 invoices getting backed up that aren't getting paid and that kind of thing.
Down.
Yeah, because it'll like, you know, if you don't do this kind of stuff, you could miss something like really big, and that would suck to like find out that like I don't know some disaster was struck, or like you're suddenly out of money and you could have seen that coming months ago if you had just reviewed your stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So get in the habit of reviewing your stuff, finances, etc. Um, Another one will be pricing related, as I kind of knew this going in, but also still something I kind of struggle with. I think everybody does, unless you're like maybe like super big or something like that. But it's really yeah.
Um, Evan, your voice actually went out a little bit.
Oh, can you hear me?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, it's actually out again. What happened with that?
Let me check. Okay, can you hear me
Uh, Not too
now?
great.
Yeah.
A little bit, say a little
All
bit. It's like going in and out now.
right, I'm gonna turn this back on and see if this works.
Here we go. How's
Okay,
that?
can you hear me?
I went back out again. You had when you were messing with the headphone, it sounded like really good. A
Right, how about now?
little bit better, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Check.
just that last you had that last tip that was you were gonna drop.
Yeah. Yeah. So believe in your pricing and know your worth early on. It's an important thing. I think it's a regular thing to actually revisit, to be honest. And I think it's something that people struggle with, especially me. I've had to work through it myself, but like figure out your pricing and really like believe in it
Mm,
to the point where you could really like, I mean, obviously sell it, but like pitch it in such a way and explain it to someone who doesn't like it, that you can usually communicate why your pricing is that way.
right.
Because it's easy, especially if you're new to it and you're trying to figure out your pricing, and then you're like trying to write up, I don't know, an estimate for somebody, and you're like, you feel insecure, you're like, oh, I mean, this is too much. You try to like dial it back, but it's like, it's better if you know your worth and believe in your pricing early on.
Right. Yeah.
So
That's I think that's huge actually. That's a really good point. I know that was a challenge for me too. That's a challenge for a lot of people because
yeah,
I think especially like in our industries, because it's more like service related over anything, a lot of business owners, it might not that you can't do business, that not that you can't do like market research, but it can be a little bit of a challenge because a lot of people that provide services, they don't have their prices kind of there on their website for you to kind of just
yeah,
figure out. A lot of them are, have a free consultation or book a free call. And then
yeah,
do ask them about their price, they say, well, it depends. So it can be a little
yeah, yeah,
um, but I think you actually, hit the nail right on the head because knowing your value and knowing your worth, obviously you want your prices to make sense, in your market, but you'll be able to defend whatever price you do set because you know your value. You'll be able to
mm,
stand up for yourself, and that's a big deal. Um, that's a really big deal. I see, like, because I've got some friends that are kind of new into the field, and that's their concern is just figuring out pricing,
yeah.
figuring out the
I,
price.
I've always kind of heard, and I've kind of seen this myself, is there's a sweet spot with pricing where some people are saying yes, they're buying from you, and some people are saying no. So if it's always yes, that means your prices are too low. And if it's always no, that means your prices are too high. So you got to get that sweet spot to where some say yes and some say no.
Yeah, so it's more 50-50 over anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. And also another thing is like, I think a lot of people, is people that just start. I always hear like the common excuse that, well, I just started, so I'm just kind of just putting out, this is my price. I want to start cheap because I just started. I don't know about you, Evan, per se, but the clients I've worked with, I've never had anyone ask me, okay, how much experience do you have, or how many years have you been doing? I mean, I've worked with I'm not trying to brag at all. I'm just trying to just make that whole point that it's like we've worked with good numbers of people, and I've never had anyone kind of say, well, I'm not going to pay this because you've only been in business for a couple of months. I'm not going to pay this
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you've been in business for 5 years and I want someone who's been in business for 7 years. Most people don't care. They just
yeah,
want
yeah.
the
You're right.
results. And
Exactly.
I just want the results. So if you can back that, and I think that ties back to your point where you mentioned that if you know your value, then you can kind of explain that when you're talking to a prospect. They understand that, they trust that you can provide them those results, bump the experience,
Yeah, yeah,
bump the experience.
totally.
But this has been really great. And you're a prime example of how someone can go from, an ambitious, hardworking side hustler and become a successful entrepreneur. You and your wife are doing it. My wife actually just became an entrepreneur last week. So
Yeah, that's right. That's awesome.
excited about that. But you guys set, a phenomenal example. You've got 3 kids and you guys are still running a successful business. And that is hard to say in one sentence, but you guys are killing it. So it's a huge pleasure having you on today's episode. But I mean, how can people reach out to you? I mean, what outlets can they find you on?
Yeah, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to be pretty active on there. So you can just search for me. I also use the hashtag grow with content. So if you'd rather find me that way and look at my stuff, you can subscribe that way.
Gotcha.
I can always reach out via email if you anybody out there who wants to learn more or needs help with video or podcast marketing, you can just reach me at Evan, EVAN at Staehle Media, STAEHLE media.com.
Sweet. Okay. And I'll put all that info in the description too. For anyone that is interested in reaching out to Evan, you guys will have that quick access to him. Now, let me ask you this. I mean, I'm curious about this. I mean, do you do the video and podcast services for the individual, or do you provide like coaching for someone, let's say someone that's out of state, but still wants to do some kind of business with you? What kind of service could you provide for them?
Yeah, we do both. Primarily we do it ourselves, but we can do more coaching if someone is more of a DIYer, or because of cost, or just because they like doing it themselves. We can always do like come alongside if we do some coaching. We do stuff where a lot of stuff done over Zoom like this, where it's like video interviews, and we can take that footage and make cleaner, nicer looking video content out of that. So that's always an option too. If distance is a factor, is there's always remote options like Zoom or something like that to record footage. So
awesome. Okay, so you guys heard it first. If you still want to reach out to them, doesn't matter if you're local or out of state, still
that's
have.
right.
So I'll throw that in the description, everything in there. And Evan, thanks so much again for being today's guest, man. It's been awesome.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. And everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Passion, Pain, and Personal Finance Show. And I'll talk to you soon.